Welcome to a deep dive into one of Australia's most enduring cold cases, a mystery that has baffled detectives and armchair sleuths for decades. We are talking about the Somerton Man, a case filled with secrets, codes, and a man whose identity was seemingly erased from existence. This is the story of a perfectly dressed stranger found dead on a beach, and the disturbing details that turned a simple body recovery into an international enigma. Our story begins at Somerton Beach, a beautiful stretch of coastline in Adelaide, Australia, in the late 1940s. The date was December 1st, 1948. The sun was just rising over the tranquil Somerton Beach. Early that morning, two horse riders noticed a man lying against a seawall. It seemed unremarkable at first. People had seen him sitting there the previous evening and assumed he was sleeping, or perhaps recovering from a late night. However, when authorities finally arrived, the grim reality set in. The man was dead, his posture oddly relaxed. No wallet, no identification, no explanation for why this perfectly dressed stranger lay lifeless on the sand. How could nobody know this man? As police began their investigation, the unsettling details started to emerge, transforming the case from a simple death into a profound mystery. Physically, the man appeared respectable. He wore a neat suit, a tie, and clean shoes. He was well-groomed, suggesting he was not destitute. Then investigators noticed the first major strange detail. Almost every clothing label had been meticulously removed. His identity had been expertly erased. There was no passport, no driver's license, no name, and nothing to indicate who he was or where he came from. His pockets contained only a few unusual items: a cigarette packet, some chewing gum, and bus or train tickets, none of which offered any clue to his identity. It seemed as if someone, perhaps the man himself, had gone to great lengths to deliberately remove every trace of his existence. The mystery was becoming deeper and far more suspicious. This wasn't a simple death. It was an elaborate enigma. Decades later, the Somerton Man's case continues to challenge investigators, with new clues still emerging from the cold case files. The enduring enigma of the Somerton Man remains a compelling testament to the complexities of unsolved mysteries and erased identities. The mystery of the Somerton Man, found dead on an Australian beach, continues to baffle investigators decades later. His identity remains unknown, and the circumstances of his death are shrouded in suspicion. With no identification and no obvious signs of foul play, the first critical step was to determine how he died. The body was transported for an immediate and thorough autopsy. The autopsy was seen as the crucial moment for the case. Doctors hoped the internal examination would reveal a simple, clear cause of death, providing closure and directing the investigation. Investigators were optimistic. A visible injury, a known disease, or perhaps remnants of poisoning would quickly explain the tragedy and allow the case to move forward from the beach discovery. Instead of clarity, the medical examination only added layers to the enigma. The doctors faced an impossible puzzle as they dissected the unknown man. Several of the man's major organs appeared congested, particularly the spleen and liver. His stomach also contained traces of a recent meal, digested normally. This congestion suggested a powerful toxin might have been administered near the time of death, rapidly leading to heart failure. But here was the infuriating problem. Exhaustive tests could find no trace of any poison. There was no sign of obvious disease, and no external injuries to suggest physical trauma. The body simply seemed to have shut down. The coroner and the doctors were stumped. They couldn't explain the rapid congestion without identifying a cause. The official death certificate was reluctantly marked with a frustrating conclusion. Cause of death remained, quote, uncertain. The case was not simple. It was quickly becoming unsolvable. The case stalled, but investigators continued their painstaking work. Months after the initial discovery, a renewed examination of the man's clothing led to an astonishing find. Deep within the waistband of the Somerton Man's meticulously tailored trousers, investigators found something concealed, a tiny, secret pocket, cleverly sewn into the lining. Inside this hidden compartment, folded tightly and rolled up, was a minute scrap of paper, barely larger than a postage stamp. When the tiny paper was gingerly unrolled, only two words were visible, printed in faded ink. The words read, Tamám Shud, a Persian phrase meaning, "It is finished," or "It is over." This phrase, Tamám Shud, was soon traced back to the final page of a 19th century translation of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, a famous collection of Persian poetry. The paper scrap had been torn directly from the book. The discovery was a dramatic twist, transforming a difficult case into a baffling international mystery. The man was unidentified, poisoned without a trace, and now tied to cryptic poetry. Why was such a profound, final message hidden in a secret pocket? This was no casual note. It required planning and careful concealment. Who put it there? The man himself or someone else? Was Tamám Shud a suicide note, indicating he chose his end? Or was it a vital clue, left by a killer or handler, signifying the successful completion of a mission? The case had just begun. Decades later, this case remains officially unsolved, involving a cryptic death, a rare book, and an unbreakable code. The mystery intensified with the introduction of a book that seemed to be connected to the dead man. Police released details about the unique paper fragment found in the dead man's pocket. Suddenly, a man came forward, claiming he found a crucial piece of the puzzle. He had found a copy of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam inside his car, and its final page had been neatly torn out. This torn page perfectly matched the paper found on the dead man. Inside the recovered book, investigators discovered something shocking: a phone number and a strange sequence of letters, a coded message. Cryptographers, researchers, and amateurs worldwide tried, but the meaning of that random sequence of letters remains one of the greatest unsolved codes in history. The next major breakthrough came from the phone number found in the book, leading police to a woman who would only deepen the mystery. The phone number led police to a woman named Jessica Thompson, who lived only a short distance from where the body was found. Her proximity to the crime scene immediately raised questions, suggesting a possible connection to the unidentified man. When police showed Jessica a plaster cast of the dead man's face, witnesses claimed she appeared visibly shocked. Despite her reaction, she strongly denied knowing him, or at least denied any close acquaintance, keeping her cards close to her chest. The mystery deepened further when investigators discovered she owned a copy of the exact same edition of the Rubaiyat. Was this a massive coincidence, or was she hiding a secret? As the facts emerged, the public's imagination ran wild, leading to the most exciting and persistent theory: espionage. The case occurred at the very beginning of the Cold War, a time of rising international tensions and increased secret intelligence operations globally. The key elements: an unidentified man, a coded message, missing ID, a mysterious woman, and suspected poison, all pointed towards a sinister, covert operation. The public immediately began speculating. Was he a spy? A double agent? A secret courier carrying classified information? Despite the lack of concrete proof, the spy theory never disappeared, cementing the Tamám Shud case as a legendary unsolved mystery. The Tamám Shud case continues to baffle investigators and fascinate the world, a truly timeless puzzle waiting to be solved. For over 70 years, the case baffled investigators and amateur sleuths alike. This was a mystery that refused to be solved. Years turned into decades, and the body found on Somerton Beach remained anonymous. The investigation stalled, but the intrigue never did. New suspects and theories constantly emerged. Was it suicide, cold-blooded murder, a case of international espionage, or perhaps a secret romantic connection? The ideas were endless. Every compelling theory shared one fatal flaw: an absolute lack of undeniable proof. The Somerton Man remained a ghost, anonymous for over 7 decades, deepening the sense of sadness and frustration. Then, in the 21st century, the field of forensic science finally provided a new weapon against the mystery: advanced DNA technology. Researchers obtained crucial DNA evidence from hair samples preserved from the original 1948 investigation, bringing the case into the modern scientific era. Using sophisticated genetic genealogy techniques, scientists began comparing the recovered DNA profile against public databases, slowly tracing possible family connections and narrowing down the possibilities. The critical moment arrived in 2022 when researcher Derek Abbott and his team announced a significant breakthrough. This work was painstaking, requiring the tracing of hundreds of thousands of genetic markers across generations. According to the genetic findings, the Somerton Man was likely Carl Charles Webb, an electrical engineer who hailed from Melbourne. This was the name the world had waited decades to hear. For the first time in over 70 years, the unknown man had a name and a past. This breakthrough brought a wave of relief, but also reignited curiosity, as the biggest mysteries still loomed large. While the identity of Carl Webb is a monumental step, the actual circumstances of his death continue to present an impenetrable enigma. The fundamental question persists: how exactly did Carl Webb die? The cause of death was initially determined as poisoning. but the specific agent was never identified, leaving the manner of death wide open. Why were all the clothing labels removed from his attire? And what about the mysterious handwritten code found inside the back cover of the book? These deliberate actions suggest a motive beyond a simple accidental death. We still need to know why the tiny Tamám Shud paper, meaning the end, was hidden in his fob pocket, and what his exact connection was to Nurse Jessica Thompson. Was his death a calculated suicide, a professional murder to silence him, or something even more complex, perhaps linked to the Cold War-era espionage theories? The identity may have been discovered, offering some closure to his family, but the core mystery of his final moments, the why, remains defiantly unsolved. The Somerton Man mystery continues to capture global attention, a testament to its compelling complexity and enduring secrets. For decades, he was known only as the Somerton Man, a stranger with no name, a body with no history, and a death with no explanation. Today, we may finally know who he was, but we still don't know why he died. And perhaps that final secret disappeared with him into the night on Somerton Beach.